Everybody, are you serious? Everybody get some coffee this morning and let's just relax a moment because the world is at a reflection point. It's at a moment where I'm not sure where it's going to go. And we're going to take an eye on it, and we're going to keep an eye on it as it relates to prophecy, because that is our best guide. No doubt about it. Let me put a shout out, if I could, right now for www.pastorpaulgold.com. That's www.pastorpaulgold.com. How fast can the stock market fall? Well, in an instant. Matter of fact, you can ask the NVIDIA shareholders. They lost $600 billion in the stock market, wiped out overnight. No warning and no second chances. Now, Noble Gold Investment is alerting all of its clients to diversify now. Market crashes don't wait. They strike fast, devastating the unprepared. But smart investors, they're always one step ahead, protected and prepared. For nearly a decade, my friends over at Noble Gold Investments have helped thousands of people protect their wealth and gold IRAs and physical gold. With over $2 billion in precious metal sales, Noble Gold is the trusted choice for Americans serious about their financial activity. Guys, seriously, gold, it's a biblical currency. It's real, it's yours, and it retains value. And now, when you open a qualified gold or silver IRA, Colin Plume and his folks over there at Noble Gold will give you two of these coins. These are 5 ounces of pure silver. 5 ounces pure silver. It's called the Silver America, the beautiful coin. They'll give them to you for free. Find out all about it. Get signed up. Go to www.pastorpaulgold.com. That's www.pastorpaulgold.com, or call the phone number below, 877-646-5347, and tell them Pastor Paul Begley sent you. You'll be glad that you did. All right. Well, here's what's going on. In Saudi Arabia, Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, along the triplets, really, along with Mike Waltz and Steve Wilcott, are in Saudi Arabia meeting with the Russians, and the Saudi Arabians are actually refereeing it. Who's missing? Ukrainian representation. Nobody there from Ukraine. No one asked the Ukrainians to come. This is a structured deal, looks like, between the United States and Russia, that once the U.S. figures out how to deal with Russia, then they'll go to the Ukrainians and say, here's what the Russians are willing to do. And then they'll probably try to convince the Ukrainians to go along. But the Ukrainians are not happy about being left out initially. But at the same time, they do realize that the war is grinding, and unless the U.S. continues to fund it, they're not going to win. And the U.S. is not going to continue to fund it, okay? It's just not going to happen. We've spent way too much money on this war, way too much, and the American people do not have the appetite to continue to feed this monster, this war. So let me tell you about what's going on here, because if you ask me, this is very significant. Now, I'm going to be talking about not just Russia when it comes to prophecy, but this Saturday, we're teaching on our book, Revelation 9/11. You can get a ticket for this event. It's this Saturday, February 22nd. It's from 12 noon to 3 p.m. It'll be live at my website with a chat room, a special chat room just for those of you who have a ticket and attend the event live. You still can get your ticket and watch the event, watch the 3 hours of teaching from Revelation 9/11 and the Bible. You can watch it as many times as you want, so you don't have to be there present live to see it. But I guarantee you, it's going to be a lot of fun, and we're going to talk about the war. And we're going to be talking about Ezekiel 38. We're going to be talking about what's happening with Russia and Ukraine war right now, because I wrote it in the book. And predictability of how it's going to wind up will be discussed in this. It's a seminar, okay? So get your tickets. Go to my website at paulbegleyprophecy.com. It's called the Revelation 9/11 Seminar. Now let's talk about what is about to happen and what is happening this morning. Top Russian and top U.S. officials are discussing the improving ties and ending the Ukrainian war. Listen, the United States and Russia are trying to rebuild fences because during the Biden administration, there was no conversations with the Russians for over 3 years. Zero official conversations. Now, top diplomats from Russia, and I can tell you right here, I can show you right here even. Let me find that. Sorry about that. But they were there, and they're there right now. It's still going on. But you have Sergei Lavrov right here over my shoulder. And of course, Marco Rubio as well. Now, here's what's been taking place in the discussions. The top diplomats from Russia and the United States were this morning and still are in Saudi Arabia discussing improving ties and negotiating an end to the war with Ukraine. These talks are reflected a major rapid change in American foreign policy under President Donald Trump. No Ukrainian officials are present at the meeting, which came as the beleaguered country is slowly but steadily losing ground against more numerous Russian troops and technology in a grinding war that's began nearly 3 years ago. President Vladimir Zelensky and his country won't accept any outcome from this week's talks if Kiev doesn't take part. And everyone knows that. But the U.S. is trying to negotiate an end to the war with the Russians and figure out what it is that the Russians can live with so that they can also convince the Ukrainians. And what does it take for them to live with the end of this? So the European allies are meeting at the exact same time this morning in France with Emmanuel Macron, the president of France, and the president of the UK, and the EU is there, and NATO is there, and others. Beyond Ukraine, the meeting attended by U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, and the other senior officials had been expected to focus on the thawing relationship between the two countries, whose ties have fallen to their lowest levels in decades. In an interview with the Associated Press and other news media outlets, Rubio said that the two sides agreed broadly to pursue 3 goals: to restore staffing at the respective embassies in Washington and in Moscow, to create a high-level team to support the Ukraine peace talks, and to explore closer relations and economic cooperation. Now, both embassies had been hit hard by expulsions of large numbers of diplomats over the course of several years under the Biden administration as relations soured along the U.S. along with European nations, imposing a raft of sanctions on Russia. The allies had repeatedly expanded the measures to damage the Russian economy. Should this conflict come to an acceptable end, the incredible opportunities that exist to partner with the Russians geopolitically on issues of common interest and, frankly, economically on issues that hopefully will be good for the world and also improve our relationship with the Russians, said Marco Rubio. His remarks were further evidence of a remarkable U.S. reversal on Russia after years in which Trump's predecessor, Joe Biden, led an international effort to isolate Moscow. This morning's meeting was meant to pave the way for a summit between President Donald J. Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin. And after the talks wrap up, Putin's foreign affairs advisors, Yerzy Yuzov, told Russia's Channel One that no date has been set yet for that summit, but that it was unlikely to take place next week. Now, I have already done a video on this about 2 weeks ago, maybe 3, on the information I got on a date for the Trump-Putin meeting. I didn't have a location, but I had a date, and that it was March 9th and March 10th. I'm still holding to that. That's intel I got. That don't mean that's going to stick. Of course, either leader could change that date, and nobody else is reporting that, but I did share that with you guys over at my Patreon channel, and you can go check that out. Now, previously at my Patreon channel, though, here's what we're hearing, and you know, you have to take these one step at a time when you start dealing with this type of negotiations that's going on right now. Things change quickly, and you got other people who are participating. You know, again, this guy wants in also. You know, the Mohammed bin Salman, he wants a seat at the table. And so, you know, we have to see how that might play out. Obviously, Trump and Putin are the ones that's got to get together for this thing to come anywhere near an ending. And then at some point, you got to bring in Zelensky, and you can't just shove a deal down his throat. You got to let him participate in it. But right now, they're so far apart. This war is so ugly and so brutal that the sides are so far apart. There's no love at all between the Russians and the Ukrainians. And but the Ukrainians are running out of time because they're running out of weapons. And Trump is done sending no more money going to Ukraine. So in some ways, Trump is cornering Zelensky and forcing Putin prematurely, because I think Putin wanted to take the whole country. We've heard Mike from around the world talk about that. But Trump is cornering both of them in some ways, pressuring the Russians and cornering the Ukrainians, and then going to bring the Europeans into it when he's ready, and going to use the Saudi Arabians to help broker it. And he's using Saudi Arabia to help broker it because Saudi Arabia will also participate in the rebuilding efforts of Ukraine financially. And he can then pivot from this war to the Middle East, continuing using the Saudi Arabians. That is what the strategy looks like that Trump is doing. I'm not saying I necessarily agree with that strategy, but that is the strategy that he is using. Previously, the Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov told reporters that the talks would be primarily focused on restoring the entire range of U.S.-Russian relations, as well as maybe preparing possibly for talks on the Ukrainian settlement and organizing a meeting of the two presidents. The U.S. State Department spokeswoman Tammy Bruce has said that the meeting was aimed at determining how serious the Russians are about wanting peace and whether the detailed negotiations can even be started. The recent U.S. diplomatic blitz on the war has sent Ukraine and key allies scrambling to ensure a seat at the table amid concerns that Washington and Moscow could press ahead and deal that won't be favorable to them. And Kiev's absence at today's talks has rankled many Ukrainians, and France called on emergency meeting. Again, Macron is sticking his nose and into things way too. What Trump's trying to do, first of all, is build a relationship back with Russia that is absolutely ice cold because of the Biden administration. Wouldn't even take a phone call. They just wouldn't even talk to him. And has just fed this war for 3 years with your tax dollars and hundreds of thousands of people being slaughtered. With no end in sight, no plan in sight, no end game in sight. Biden just had no end game. He just was on the beach and just let them fight. Send them all the money you want, let them fight. The U.S. people are tired of that. Ukrainians can't win like this because they were barely getting enough weapons just to barely to hang on. No chance to win. You either go in to win or you negotiate and bring closure. So Trump, realizing that the strategy of the last 3 years is a disaster, has cost the American public billions, and has cost tens of thousands of lives on both sides of the Russians and Ukrainians. Trump is saying, well, we got to figure out a way to end this. And Russia says, okay, well, it starts with us. At least you want to talk, let's talk. First of all, we got to build a relationship again. Are we going to have a working relationship? Are we going to open back up trade? Are you going to start letting up sanctions? Do you want to open up our embassies? Do you want to start having, meaning dialogue? And apparently Trump and Putin have had that discussion on the phone. Now, Zelensky's immediately upset because he's not sitting at the table already. Trump's just trying to figure out a way to build a relationship back with Russia before you could even go to the next level. And Macron doesn't want to wait, doesn't want that relationship. Macron really doesn't want the United States and Russia to get back on a talking basis. I don't know what Macron is thinking. He just wants everybody just keep feeding the war. Well, maybe he should fund the war in Ukraine for the next 3 years, completely out of the coffers of the French. Just feed it with no insight, no end game. Maybe that's what he wants to do. No, you know that's not what he wants to do. He wants the war to continue to grind on with American tax dollars, with no end game. That's what we were doing under Biden. So what it really comes down to, I think, is did you know about the 393 million on Social Security? That's the same as our U.S. population. Yeah, I did. And that's killing us. Thank you for letting me know that, Buzzy. And you're exactly right. Thank you for reminding me, actually. Yeah, we've been funding not only the war efforts in Ukraine, guys, we've been funding the entire Ukrainian economy. And it was blindly just throwing it out there. Okay? While our people are freezing up in North Carolina from the hurricane disaster, while we're throwing, we're throwing crumbs at the Hawaiians after their wildfire, while their water ran out of the fire hydrants in California from the wildfires, while planes are falling out of the sky, we're $36 trillion in debt. And Biden's answer to all of that is ignore all of that while the border was absolutely being overrun, while we were funding illegals all over the country with billions and trillions of dollars, really. And the American people were just being taxed out of their mind. And we were just throwing money at this Ukraine war with no end game. There has to be any war you fight, you either fight to win it, or in the midst of fighting, you start figuring out how to end it. You can't just throw money at it and just walk away and go to the beach somewhere in Delaware. And so Trump has the hard work to do. Start out by rebuilding the bridge with Russia. Then bringing people to the table. And the only way to do it is first build a bridge with Russia and then turn to the Ukraine and say, look, we're not sending them more. We're not sending any more money. No. We're ending it. Now get on board. And then tell Macron and the Europeans, you had your 3 years, you and Biden and that whole situation. You have no plan. You're spending our money. You still don't have a plan, but you're crying and whining over there sitting at the table by yourself with your European friends. It's not going to get it done. So we got to get the ball moving. So I think that's what's happening right now. And so and then you got the American press. And I'm just going to be honest with you. You can't get emotional and get all upset if you listen to the American press. If you listen to these guys, they'll drive you insane because they are globalist. They are not for ending the war. They're for feeding the war and feeding their own machine. And so this is what's put us in this very difficult situation, to say the least. So we need to really pray. Now, I'll be teaching from Revelation 9:11 because I think we got to look at this prophetically, whether we like it or not. Ezekiel 38 is still in play. Matter of fact, it's what Chuck Missler said is the big milestone that will happen next. And we quote him in the book here. It's quite interesting what's going to come out here. And we're going to look at it from the biblical standpoint of just exactly where is this all going to go? Where do we all go in this time, in this very difficult time? It's just unbelievable to me. And then we have to look at the ultimate biblical prophecy from a larger scale, not just Ezekiel 38, but you got to look at it from the rise of the beast kingdom, all this new technology. We talk about it in the book Revelation 9:11. The rise of AI, the new technologies of warfare, the shifting of and the decay of the morality of America and around the globe, the false prophets and false teachers, and even the false Christ that rises in the last days. We'll talk about the war in the Middle East, what's going on right now. That's also in the book. As we were writing the book, the attack happened on October 7th, 2023. So we get into that. We're going to talk about the UFO disclosure in here, and the deception, the grand deception, and the strong delusion that obviously is taking place. We're going to be talking about the signs in the heavens. What about this binary system? What's affecting the sun? What about all these new asteroids that are coming in now? One is going to come very close, Apophis, in 4 years. One is coming now in 7 years, even closer. And we just discovered it in December. And there's more. And what about all of the magma moving, and the earth is tilting, and the surface of the earth is heating, and the sun is exploding, and the wars and rumors of wars globally, and the persecution of Christians brutally throughout the world, and the rise of the Antichrist, and the third temple, and the red heifers, and the technologies, the mark of the beast system, crypto, all of it. We're going to talk about all of it on Saturday. So don't miss this. It will be an incredible time. We're in the end days. We are truly in the end days. Go to my website at paulbegleyprophecy.com, get your tickets. Or if you haven't ordered the book, I just shipped a bunch of autographed copies of my Revelation 9:11 book yesterday. And also, get your ticket for this Saturday's event.
God, I'm so scared for this crooked generation.
Let's give our lives to Christ.
You even find faith in the earth when you bring down revelation. Forgive us now the sins of our youth, worshiping the idols that knew.
Can Rubio do it?
But the truth.
No, it's going to take Jesus.
We just have to uncorrupt our mind.
Good morning, family.
Show us now, we still have the time.
Give your life to Jesus Christ.
We need you,
Yeshua.
Holy, holy, hallelujah. We need you, Yeshua.
God bless you, Mike and Zella, Vela,
Holy, hallelujah.
Overbuilt, Lupus, Warrior,
Abandon everything.
Jim, good to see you, Jim, and Mike Geyer, Brad, Angie.
Our gold and silver in the street. How much will we see
Before the fire falls, Lord, could this really be the last altar call? We need your blood over the doorpost of our hearts. Anoint us with your fiery love as the praise and worship starts. We need you, Yeshua.
holy, holy, hallelujah. We need you, Yeshua.
Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life.
Hallelujah. We abandon everything to follow you, our our King. We throw our gold and silver in the streets. Oh, we abandon everything to follow you, our King. We throw our gold and silver in the streets.
Something's happening right now. We need Jesus, folks.
We abandoned everything.
Planes falling out of the sky,
Follow you, our King.
landing upside down.
Throw our gold and silver in the
Earthquakes.
We abandoned everything to follow you, our King. We throw our gold and silver in the street.
Very powerful earthquake hit within the hour at in White City, New Mexico, 4.6. And it was extremely shallow. It was only 6.5 kilometers deep. That means only about 4 miles deep. And it was 4.6. White City, New Mexico. A lot of quakes happening right now in the West Coast over in California. Greece had another 5.1. Two of them, actually. 5.1, 5.1. There was also a 4.6 in Greece. So Greece continues to shake. And earthquakes continue to shake in. But really, right along the west coast of California, right along the coast of California and into Mexico, there's been a ton of earthquakes here in the last 4 or 5 hours. So we'll keep an eye on those as well. Someone said 2 earthquakes. Tina says 2 earthquakes hit Tennessee last week. That's always concerning. Always concerning. And so the Delta crash had a prophetic sign. Even if the world goes upside down, I'll still save you. That's a great point, Brian. It's a great point. It's a very positive. I mean, it's a miracle. 80 people were on that plane. 80 people. And I watched the video several times of it coming in, and then apparently right as it's landing, it must have been a gust of wind or something tilted it onto its wing, and then that crashes in a ball of fire and rolls over, but doesn't completely blow apart. And all 80 people on board are alive. Some are hurt critically, but they're all alive. 15 were injured. But this is a miracle. This is the biggest miracle besides the one landing on the Hudson. A plane crashing and rolling over and nobody dying is just miraculous. You might be right. It's a very good sign. The earth is turning upside down, but I'll still save you. Things are going out of control, but I'll still save you if you'll trust in the Lord. I'll be back, guys. There's a lot going on. I just had to get to you about this early morning meetings taking place in Saudi Arabia. I'm not jumping up down saying they're ending the war because we're so far apart. The Russians are just saying, let's build our relationship first. The Ukrainians are not happy because they're not at the table yet, but Russia's not ready to come to the table with Ukraine yet. Russia's not even ready to come to the table with anybody yet. They're starting with America, and they got to do that in Saudi Arabia. But Trump is pushing. And I have, as I've said, over at my Patreon channel, you can go watch some of my Patreon videos. You can watch them. If you're a member there, then you already know you can go and watch them. I talked about intel I had, and I've got some more intel that I'm going to be bringing up today later over at Patreon. So keep an eye on that. And I'll be back here on YouTube as well. There's a lot going on. So keep praying. We're living in the last days. I'll be back. Give your life to Jesus Christ. We're running out of time. And here's the key. You don't want to be left behind.